This is When I Grow Up with Paul Glazby.
Paul, how's this podcast? How'd you start this, and how's it all coming along? How's it going?
Well, to be honest, mate, it's really sort of gone off on a bit of a tangent that we never expected. So I started it with the intention of, because I've had like an unusual path to get to where I'm at, and everything I ever did, the DJing, the personal training, the real estate, I never meant to do any of it. I just kind of fell into these things, and then I've been relatively successful in all of them. So I was talking to somebody. I've been wanting to. Oh, thanks, man. I'm trying to be humble.
Very successful.
So I was talking to someone. I've been wanting to do a podcast, but I couldn't think of an interesting way to do a real estate podcast. And then I was telling someone how I ended up being a real estate agent, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's such a random story." And then I thought, there must be loads of people that have got, because when you're at school, you don't know what you want to be. Like, you know, you ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you have to sort of give an answer, but no one knows. And then you kind of
never know.
No, well, that's exactly right. And I still don't know. So I'm 47. I've done all these things. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So that's how we sort of, that's how the podcast came about. But then through having, Paul Maddox, Ben Stevens, Lisa Lashes, all these DJ friends that I've got, and then people have been listening, and it's just sort of took on so I don't want it to be just the hard house people, but it's going to be, I think the way it's going, it's kind of 75% is going to be that way. So but it seems to be going well. We're getting some good interaction on YouTube and Instagram. But it was Matt, because when you said it had been running for a while, and then Matt said, we've got to start an Instagram page so that people know that this thing is even happening. And that's what's really sort of propelled it. Yeah. So, it's good.
Another question for you. Who's,
the tables are turned.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I've always wanted to be in the driver's seat for a change. This is about time I'm asking questions. Who's been your most favorite person to interview on your podcast so far?
I think probably my favorite has been E&M, and just because he was the guy, he was the man that I used to want to be, Interesting. So I used to, obviously, Steve Thomas and Andy Farley and even Tony DeVee, but obviously Tony DeVee passed away as I was sort of just coming through.
Did you know Tony?
No. I've kind of said hello to him once, while he was on the deck, but that was about Sunday Central in Birmingham. But Ian, he was, and I actually told him on the episode that we did that he was the guy that got me out of doing drugs. That was because I followed him one night and I'd had something I shouldn't have had if I was playing, and I struggled through this set after the best DJ in the world as far as I was concerned. And that night I'm like, I'm never doing this again. If because I just felt stupid. So there's only a couple of people that knew that, but I told him, so everybody knows now. But that was there's no secrets anymore.
I'm sorry, this was the plan. I was going to expose you to your audience. So to who's ever listening to this, Paul Glazby has done it. World exclusive.
Yeah.
Can I just say, what made him so amazing? Like, why would you think he was like the best? Outside, I only knew him obviously because of his music, for me, being in Australia. And so obviously, things like The Dawn to me was, when it came out on Trade, I was just, a massive fan. Why? Why does he have this?
Tony DeVino or E&M?
Yeah. Tony. Oh, sorry.
Tony
not Ian.
Yeah.
Tony. Yeah.
Oh, I think just because he was like the guy that was really championing the sound and taking it from the gay scene in London and I guess to Birmingham, but mainly London.
Yeah.
And dropping it into clubs like Gatecrasher, which was in Sheffield, where I'm from. They'd have all these big trance acts on, but then he'd be there just absolutely. I guess in retrospect, he wasn't even playing that hard, but it was hard house he was playing.
Yeah, of course.
So compared to, you know, Scott Bond or God, I can't even think of any of the DJs that would have been on at Gatecrasher, but yeah, just vastly different sound. And then, you know, this guy, and it was interesting again talking to Ian because he was with him. He used to buy records for Tony DeVee. He was his record buyer.
Really?
And yeah, so he used to buy a copy for him and a copy for himself. But he was saying about how, you know, like he'd really done the hard yards. And even Andy and Ammo, the Tidy Boys, when they came on, Ammo was saying about, you know, this guy had done the grind, he'd done the weddings, he'd done the you know, shitty little gigs here and there, and then he'd really made a name for himself. And then at 40 years old, or I think he was just about to turn 40, or he just turned 40, and he was really just about to explode, and then he passed away. So yeah, it's just, that's the other thing that's been interesting about doing this as well, is interviewing the guys like the Tidy Boys, especially Ammo, the Tidy Boys, E&M, Andy Farley, although we've got to redo Andy Farley's episode because his internet was shit.
Oh,
but all these guys that were like that made the scene, you know, like I came into the scene. Hard house was a thing and I came into it, but these guys were playing fucking, you know, gay clubs in the late 80s, and there was no sound. They were playing just stuff that they liked, and it kind of morphed into a sound. So yeah, that's been interesting. You know,
and
like
E&M,
sorry,
just E&M, like just the why of E&M, like why was he so fascinating to you?
Just because, like, he would play stuff that I in fact, I said it on the episode. I remember me and my friend, so that night where he played, where I had to play after him, and we were on the dance floor, and I remember saying to my friend, what the fuck is this? We'd never heard anything like it. It was like a machine gun going on. It was just incredible. Like, but then to watch him mix, and he was just so understated, you know, there was nothing flash about him, you know, like he just of his like tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt. He's just like this big guy, not interacting with the crowd, not looking up, just and I'd just be watching his hands, trying to work out, you know, when his hands do that, what can I hear? You know, like I'm trying to, because I was teaching myself to DJ by watching people like him. Yeah, just insane. But like I said, creating a sound, creating a scene, you know, creating something that wasn't there before. A little bit like, I guess, you know, it would have been if on a smaller scale, but like when Led Zeppelin came along, you know, like no one had heard anything like that, but they'd fused all these influences and then created something that no one had ever heard. And that's essentially what these guys did with hard house. So
yeah, I was lucky.
Ian swears it's not hard house, he calls it techno. So
yeah, well, it's funny enough that I think I played with Ian twice in my time. I know he definitely played one of those Frantic Sydney Emotion boat cruises, but I wasn't too sure if he actually played a Frantic Sydney as well when we had them in night, or when Marty and Christine had them in nightclubs. I can't remember. It might have happened. I know I definitely played with him on a boat. And that was just to your point, without really knowing him, and you just saying things like very cool, calm and collected, you know, but just was able to take two tunes and just fuse them together and make it sound just like this, you know, one orchestra. It reminds me, actually, funny enough, of how you play. So I don't know if that's tooting.
Well, I mean, that would be why.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a big compliment to me, but that's because, you know, so my whole thing, like the persona, you know, people would see me and think that I'm this, like, you know, unapproachable Mardy. You probably know what Mardy means, but like just like an angry person. And then I'd speak to people after the gig. But I'd speak to people after the gig and they'd be like, "Oh, you're actually quite nice." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." But I just never understood this. But you do it really well. Like I was thinking about this before. Like when we played the boat party, I play, and you know, people are enjoying it, but then you come on and everyone just goes crazy because you've got that energy that I could never. That's just not how I do it, you know. Like, but I think because I learn, so when I was watching those guys, it's like, okay, this is how they mix, but this is what you do when you're behind the decks as well. That's just what I learned, and then, you know, fast forward a couple of years and I'm playing in clubs and playing Insomniacz, and then you've got the likes of the Tidy Boys and Lisa Lashes that were more flamboyant. But I'm like, well, that's not me. I can't do that. But you do it really well.
I don't know. I don't know anything else but expressing myself in that way. And it's really interesting when I'm talking about this journey now, right? And, you know, I've done, you know, a couple of different podcasts, and actually this is the first one I've ever really talked about my love and passion for hard house and hard dance, right? Like, and so I'm super excited. Firstly, I need to say a massive thank you to you for asking me to do this, and the fact that I can even just tell a different side of my sort of music journey and my is incredible, because Frantic's always had a very special place in my heart, in terms of like where I've been, and, you know, we can definitely talk about that. But yeah, just in terms of being that, let's call it the entertainer or the flamboyant side, it's one of the things there that I just missed. So I stopped DJing. I won't say ever stopped. I just took a pause. COVID happened, and I was already getting very tired of, you know, and I said this on another podcast, I felt like I was just being a jukebox. You know, I was playing music. I was playing in bars and lots of big clubs, very mainstream, for a lot of, you know, EDM, hip hop, R&B, open format, all that sort of stuff. And to me, it was all about just playing music that people love, which I like to a degree. And then it just got tiring. You know what I mean? You're doing lots of gigs. Very lucky that I'm doing that, juggling, you know, being a dad, being a husband, having a day job, and just losing touch of why I was doing what I was doing. And so when COVID happened, it was a nice way to just ideally have a break, right? And then COVID happened, and then I just didn't really want to surface back until certain things started happening. And, you know, and I just missed that love of interaction, that where you can just be yourself and connect with people and seeing people happy, and people go, man, thanks again. That was the best time. I had the best night. You played great tunes, and you're part of something that you could create. And so when my day job got impacted back in June last year, it's actually been 1 year since I got made redundant from my corporate job. I then was like, what do I do now? Like, as I was trying to figure out my corporate steps, I was thinking, do I go back into tinkering around with music? And I never stopped tinkering around. You know, I'll always listen to podcasts, or I'll watch a set on YouTube, or, you know, if there's a live stream of something, you know, I just can't help it, you know, and I'll still hunt around for things because, you know, I used to run a record store back in Sydney a long time ago. So, you know, collecting vinyl had always been a huge part of my DNA. You know, I still got a lot of your bloody Vicious Circle vinyls downstairs. You know, I think I've got a signed copy of Beautiful from you. It's just quite funny. Yeah. So just things like that were in my DNA. And so when I was like, oh, let me get back into a little bit of music, let me see where that goes. And it's still nice. I don't play often. But when I do play, and they're for the right gigs, it really just brings back all the things there that I've missed. But what I realized very quickly is how bloody exhausting it is. Like, by the end of any set, you know, whether it's a day or a night set, man, I'm knackered, you know, that adrenaline's run. You got nowhere else to go. You're on this euphoric high, like this beautiful natural high. And then you're like, oh man, like I'm done. And I'm like done for a good few days or a week going, man, I need a break. I just couldn't believe how long, and you'd probably understand this, like how long I did it for so long.
Yeah.
Weekend after weekend, traveling, partying, bang, 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 bang. And then poof, all of a sudden you stop and then you start again and you're like, oh man, I'm not in my 20s. I'm definitely not in my 30s.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. But it is the best natural high. It is the best natural drug in the world that I just can't get from anywhere. I can't sing, God help me. I'm not a model. I'm not going to be able to, do. Well, you could be a model, but I can't get
thanks,
on
man.
stage.
He's too kind, this guy, isn't
I can't get on any particular stage anytime soon to get my natural high. So doing things like this.
I think it is a funny thing when like anyone that doesn't DJ, I don't think understands. Like I've said for years now, like if I never play again, well, until a few months ago, I was saying if I never play again, I won't care. Like if a gig comes up, like great. But if the phone never rang, if I never got another Facebook message, I wouldn't worry about it. Since I started this podcast, that's actually changed. But when, like, if I've got a gig coming up, like even back in the day, I never got excited. I used to get back. On a Monday, we'd walk into the tidy management office, and Mark Foster that ran tidy management. So we might have picked some cash up or whatever, and we'd have to drop it off at the office. And I remember once there'd been a big God's Kitchen event, and me and Lee Haslam played back to back. There was 10,000 people in this tent, and when and all the tidy roster had played at this gig, and I got in on the Monday morning, and Foz, he's like, what did you think to Saturday? And I went, yeah, we're good. And he's like, Glaz, what the fuck? He's like, everybody is saying it was the best night they'd ever had. He says, and you walk in and just go, yeah, it was all right. I mean, well, it was all right. Like it was good, like. So I never got nervous or excited before a gig, but I love it while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think anyone that doesn't DJ, they can't comprehend what it's like when you're playing. And it's not I had this conversation with Dave, the drummer. When people are reacting to the tunes, that's one thing. But when people react to your mix, that is like
magic.
That's magic. Yeah. So I think what you're saying, like you don't play very often, but when you do, it's more special. And you're not getting the Groundhog Day of doing the gigs where you feel like a jukebox as well. That's going to be like a big thing for you and for me.
Yeah, I found it. I'm finding it really interesting at the moment on music and DJing. I think when I got impacted back in June, and then sort of a few weeks later, I was thinking, let me tick around with music. I sort of felt that I had the expectation I could just get back and do some more DJing, and do things, bits and pieces here. I probably could, but obviously I'm personally trying to be more selective on the things that I can really add value to people and, bring myself to it. But I'm actually finding it a lot harder than I expected to try and jump back into, let's call it the scene, because hard house, hard dance, especially in Sydney, Australia, and Steve would definitely attest to this, there's bits and pieces of that's happening. And the hardstyle scene, I think, has got a very strong foundation. And then I started listening to the guys that are playing in the techno scene, right? And I'm playing, it's funny enough, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but I'm entering a DJ comp. That's where I'm at on some of these things to sort of get work, but I'm also doing it because I generally love playing that style of music to a bunch of people that really love that music as well. They really just thrive on it, and stuff that doesn't pay. But I'm like, hang on, man, what I'm getting paid for is the feeling that you're chasing and loving, just that natural high, sharing that moment, people go, oh my God, I really enjoyed what you did with that particular mix. Even with technology, the way that it is, right? And even I've had to adapt to technology, like understanding, you know, how these guys are doing certain things, right? On a CDJ 3000 or, you know, sort of running effects through this and looping and so forth. Like, it's just bizarre because it's sort of, whilst I still love how I've done things, I also think, well, what happens if I change these things? You know, what happens if I put markers in here and loops into that? It's been an evolution of understanding how that next generation of DJs are doing stuff, right? And it's a bit overwhelming at some stages. You can think, how the hell is someone doing that? You know, and I'm like going onto YouTube videos and watching tutorials and like, oh man, that's bloody bizarre. Like, what the hell? And but I also think sometimes it can take away from the distraction of all people are doing is so focused on screens or looking at, you know, certain things to push. You know, do you lose that magic and do you lose that element? And, you know, I still want to keep on entertaining, right? And being in that moment rather than being so stuck down. So I've had to train, because I don't play often, you're only playing in certain parts or times a year. You know, I'm having to continue to evolve of what people are wanting to hear or how they hear it. It's a bit very interesting.
Well, I mean, a lot of the crowds I play to now, because they're all kind of like reunion gigs. So I did the Insomniac's 25th birthday last year, you know, London Hard House reunion in Auckland. But they're all like our age, you know, the people that are coming back out to listen to what they would have. Yeah. But they're not expected. Like you see these videos of these like younger DJs and the crowd are all stood filming. They're just standing there filming while the DJ is playing, but the DJ is playing a track that's 2.5 minutes long, and the looping, you know, the first few bars and the last few bars to like, that's not, to me, that's not DJing. That is, I don't know what you would call that, but like when I mix, there's certain mixes that I would still do now, but I remember dropping on those mixes in Insomniac's and in the moment thinking, what will this sound like? Is this going to work? And then dropping it in, and then it works. And then there's one particular mix where I remember the Jonah Shush Listen track, the Pants and Corset remix. Yeah, that into the Paul Janes remix of The Dawn, right? And I still remember it. I was in the Corporation in Sheffield, and in the main room, and I thought, if I just drop it there, is it going to? And basically, as it drops into the Hoover on The Dawn, the shh, listen starts. The vocal, so the vocal sits over the Hoover, and then the beats kick in together on both tracks. But I'll still have people come up to me now and go, do that mix. But that's not, I can't see how these younger guys, and I'm not trying to take anything away because they're playing much bigger crowds and getting paid a lot more money than I ever did, but it's a different thing now is what I'm trying to say, where you know, doing a 4-minute mix, and literally as that riff on that one drops out, the you know, something kicks in on that one, and it's just, you're creating that third track by mixing the two together. And I don't think that's something that gets done today. A girl who I know, she I sold a house for her, and she reached out to me and said, I'm getting into DJing. And I bought these, she bought like a CDJ controller. And she said, I've done this mix, will you have a listen to it? So I said, you send it over. So I listened, and the mix, I think, was 25 minutes long, and I think I counted 17 tracks in 25 minutes. That sounds like
one of my mixes. Like it does now. And that's what it is. I'm telling you now. Like the audience is so weird. Like they just, and even some of our older audiences, they too want shorter mixes. It's so bizarre. But I find it bizarre. Like I just find, even when I listen to stuff, I just go, man, that feels long. I just need to cut it up. But it's changed. 17. And that's probably not a lot. You know, like,
well, but I said if your goal is to play as many tracks as you can in, you know, the shortest space of time, then great. You're
Right.
like you gold medal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like there was just no, it was just chopping from one. I mean, she was mixing them together,
Yeah.
but the mixes must have been 20 seconds, you know, like, and then you're into another, a little bit like when you, like a wedding DJ where they sort of, you know, just like fade
Hip hop, R&B.
ABBA into fucking Carpenters or whatever, you know, like you just felt like that. And I'm like, just as one track started getting going, it's chopping to something else. And but I think that goes to like the girl that does all my social media stuff for real estate.
Yeah.
I'll do a video and sometimes she go, no, you've lost me. I'm like, what? I've said 2 words. She went, yeah, you've lost me. Like people are going to click off. I went, fucking hell, they're not even going to have a chance to reach up and touch the. She went, they'll be gone. So then you have to start and just. I mean, I get it now, so I just do it like she says. But yeah. Just the attention span is just not there anymore. Like I just don't get it. But anyway, I'm an old man.
So that's I call that modern technology, right? So all of us are vying for eyeballs and attention because we have so many things, right? This is just one of many devices that I'll touch or see through the day. So whether it's a laptop, whether it's my mobile phone, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a screen in a shopping mall, you're just having all of this content. And then it's the content on the screens, right? All of social media, you know, whatever you might be doing across desktops, emails, like all of that sort of stuff. Technology is fantastic, but it just means that you're doing so much more at the one time, you know, like the amount of things that you do on Zoom calls as an example. How many people like you're doing a presentation to, but you know that someone's also addressing an email and maybe checking their social media or doing something else. So your ability to capture someone's attention is like within that first 10 seconds, right? And I feel like that's translated to the dance floor. So
that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
The point that I'm making is like it's now translated to that, like because a lot of the DJs, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of DJs are playing that type of format, very short, lots of tunes. The crowds are just getting used to that. So as soon as they're there for over, I'll talk maybe 2 to 3 minutes maximum of a tune. 2 minutes can be too long. You start seeing people's attention wandering. You're like, oh my God, like what the hell? Unless you're in like a very certain club that they're there, like no matter what, they're zoned in. And so it doesn't matter how you're playing or what you're playing, you're sort of in that ecosystem. And, you know, this techno club that I play at is just one of those places. It's just madness, absolutely madness. Great. It's like completely, you know, people that are just there to listen to that music and just lose themselves for a period of time. So yeah, it's really, guys, reminds me of like my Frantic days and you know, when I first started and why I first started playing into that whole scene, which was just magical.
Yeah. I remember there's a track. I actually did a YouTube short about. I've been doing a few videos of like the tracks that I played when I first got into dance, you know, into hard house, like the kind of the tunes that shaped who Paul Glazby became, kind of thing. That's the idea of it. And you know, some of them back in like 97, 98. But there's the Ufex and JB Hypnotica. Do you remember that track on Cacti?
Yes.
And that is real special to me because it's the first test pressing like promo that I ever got. I'd been playing it in Insomniacz for a few weeks, and Superfast Oz played before me. When he finished his set, he said, "Oh, I want you to have this," and I was like, you know, trying to play it cool, but inside I'm like, "Fuck, you know." And like, so I got my first promo. Like within a few weeks of that, everyone was sending me stuff, but it was just the first. I still remember it being the first one. But that breakdown is like about the build-up's like 3 minutes long. Can you imagine that? These kids, they'd be fucking killing themselves these days.
Well, it's just like if you know, you said pants and corset, right? Can you imagine playing a pants and corset tune? Like, my God, like those things are so freaking long. They're like all of them. You know, if you played any of those things end to end, you know, you just lose people. It's so bizarre, and I just feel like that's part of the magical journey. You know, like listening to those things. It is
that exactly like those build-ups, especially if you if you play like, and this is something E&M would do, and like I've done it a lot as well, is, you know, like you play stuff where there's not much breakdown, but then you have that, like, I mean, his track Deep Swarm, for example, you know, like that, you drop that after you've played like a load of hectic stuff and then drop that in, the impact that it has. Yeah, because you just got that long drawn, and the you know, the riff just goes on. It's like hypnotic. It just keeps going and going and going. But it's interesting, like, it's to think, will it swing back the other way? You know, like everything in culture goes one way, like what's happened in America recently. You know, you got the Democrats and the whole left woke thing, and then it's swung back the other way. And it's like, will dance music do the same? Will people go, this is too freaking hectic, jumping from track to track every 30 seconds? Like, give me some pants and corset, you know, like I want that build up for 4 minutes, or, you know, like, will it come back? Hopefully.
Do you have you asked that question, and what's been the feedback in relation to that, if it will come back?
It's literally, I've just thought of it 2 minutes ago. So no, you're the first person that I'm asking. But maybe we'll guys, drop it in the comments below.
Yeah. I actually don't think it will, unless it really happens, like sort of from that top, and everybody, you know, starts recognizing, because the sets are so short, right? Like if you think about, you know, the big festivals, like whether it's EDC Las Vegas or any of those mainstream festivals, right? Like each DJ or act and so forth, they're just sort of playing short times. The ones that I know that are playing really long times, you know, in some of the techno scenes or house scenes, they still play 3 or 4 hours. Like Sarah Laundry, right? She'll do 3 to 4 hours. And I feel like those guys that are playing those longer sets love playing their tunes longer, because you're playing a long set, right? Like when I used to do, I don't know, let's call it, say, DCM as an example, you know, I'd do
That's where you started, isn't it?
Nah, oh, that's sort of my
kind of.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll come back to, I'll come back to that. But I feel like DJs that are doing the longer sets and still doing 3 or 4 hours as like headline gigs will play their songs and play longer versions of their songs, so they can take people on that journey. Mate, I can't remember the last time I did anything over an hour, right? When I get booked or I'm playing. So like an hour, you're sort of trying to, in some ways, cram a lot. So because people are playing shorter time slots in my scenes, as an example, they're trying to cram a lot more in. So that, like, to your point, your friend that did 25 minutes, that 25 minutes, they're like, okay, I'm going to try and cram as much as I can because I've only got 25 minutes. So that mindset all of a sudden starts thinking, I need to cram a lot in. But DCM was my sort of, it was the biggest club in Sydney at the time, back in the 90s. And I started playing there back in 97, 98. I was originally playing at a place called Kicks nightclub. It was like a huge RSL back in Parramatta, local suburb, not far away from where I am at the moment. I'd already been doing birthday. Actually, I started DJing at Canterbury Ice Rink. I was an ice hockey player. I represented my country. I went over to Canada, played semi-pro over there. But when I was 14, I started. The DJ didn't turn up, and I was doing like skate patrol and working, like making coffees, you know, in the cafeteria. And the DJ would come on a Friday, Saturday night, and a Sunday afternoon. And this one Saturday night, DJ didn't turn up, and I said to the manager at the time, I said to Ian Milner, I said, Ian, your DJ didn't turn up. Can someone drive me home? I've got music, you know. I've been collecting CDs and vinyl. I sort of know what to do, but you need someone to play music. Instead of putting the radio on a PA, drive me home and I'll play. And the rest of that's from history, right? And you know, I think I was using, it had like 2 turntables, a horrible mixer, and I used my portable CD player because they weren't using CDs there at the time. And from that particular moment, I just thought, look at that. I think I need to get a beer as well. Like this, the whole podcast. First time we're doing it. and just say, Matt, like, you know, that's the, you know, it's so subtle. I like how you just brought it underneath there. And yeah, that's sponsored by, I can't even see what the name is.
Gauge, is it Gauge Roads? Gauge Roads.
Oh, nice. It's proudly brought to you by.
It's a tasty beer.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, thanks for distracting me. It's nice to know that my story to you is not resonating.
No, I'm listening. I'm still listening. Yeah. So you're 14. You're doing you went home and got your records, and that's how it all began.
Yeah, and then I went over to Canada. I came back, and I was like, oh my god, mate! You know, I did that for about a year and a half. I was like, I want to pick this thing up. So I was 18. I still hadn't really understood what mixing was. You know, I know how to fade in and out. And so a mate of mine was like DJing at local bars at clubs. So I would follow him around. And then I got this startup as a lighting jock at a really big nightclub in the West. And then the guy there, I mentioned him before, Dave Marini, I would watch him play. You know, vinyl and CDs, and I would just get him to teach me and learn. And I did that.
So he was your E&M?
My E&M, yeah. Just a great guy. But you got to remember, I wasn't a lighting jockey in, you know, any sort of hard house club. It was, you know, we playing retro, R&B, hip hop, you know, high energy, happy hard, like all of these things. And so I just kept on. I just loved it, right? So I bought turntables. I remember buying like a Denon CD, like it was like one of those little Denon mixer CD players. Which was just awful at the time. It was perfect at the time. Sorry, it's awful.
It was amazing at the time. It's awful now. Yeah.
It was awful now. Just thinking, how the hell, you know, just pressing these little buttons, you know, and this little pitch controller and so forth.
Yeah, there was that vertical.
Yes, that's it was so much. It was hilarious, but that sort of gave me the grounding. Then I bought my turntables, and you know, I kept on practicing. But what happened was when I was when that club closed down, I was already starting to go into the city. You know, the city was the place to be, in my view. Right? It was like I always wanted to be on Oxford Street, and Oxford Street back in the 90s was, you know, every DJ's goal to play it. And so I just started going every single weekend after I DJ'd. I'd go there, I'd go to all the day clubs. I just started trying to meet the right people, getting immersed in terms of like, what would it be like to DJ there? But idolize all of these incredible DJs at the time, which was like Jules and Stevie B and Captain Kirk, just guys that I look up to, or that I looked up to back in that period. But I'd also was really a bit weird. Like, you know, I really loved the harder sound and high energy back then, club heads, like all of that was very big for us, right? Labels like Y2K and, you know, I just had a fascination. So I just kept on. When I finally started playing in the city and my name started getting, who's this guy, Micky D? I remember just getting my first startup, finally doing, you know, one of those warm-up sets at DCM. And then that really changed. That just changed. Like I just, you know, accelerated in relation to what I wanted to do more. And that was just playing.
Yeah, you found you found your sound.
Playing. But then it was really interesting. And I'll remember this. I still remember I was playing at a club called Black Market. So it was a really big, famous day club in Sydney. And that's where I met Will Patterson. I remember Will, and I forget who the girl was, who was also doing, you know, Frantic in Sydney. But I remember Will coming up to me during one of my sets, and he introduced himself, right? And I was like, oh yeah. I don't know if I'd even really heard about Frantic, but he came up and introduced himself, and I said, hey, I'm from Frantic over in the UK. My name's Will. I really love your set. I'd love for you to come and play for me at one of my parties. I'm about to launch one in Sydney.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, cool, whatever, right? Like I didn't have a huge ego, but I was like, yeah, cool, no worries, mate. Here are my details. I might have given him a business card. I might have had one of those, here's my number, here's my business card type of a scenario. And we just started talking. And I remember it was Mardi Gras night in 2000. So the change of the millennium, the change of the century.
Yeah.
I had just done, and as I reflect on it now, I had just done the biggest gig in my entire life. So I was playing from a club on the balcony out towards Oxford Street. And when the parade finished, we had a huge PA system going out to the street. And as soon as the parade finished, we just blasted music for 45 minutes. And there were hundreds of thousands of people that came to listen to the music that we're playing.
Yeah.
And that image will never get out of my head. But I remember after that, I had to go and do DCM. And after DCM, I had to go and do the close at Frantic. So I played, I played, it was the first time I met Yoshi. So I played after him. And I don't think Will had any internationals. But I remember it was at the Icebox and it was at King's Cross. And I remember like walking into this place and going, what the hell is this? Just wall to wall, full of just people heaving, sweat, screaming. And I just was like, oh man, this is unreal. Like, it's what I love about when I'm going into a set and just feeling this energy of this united front of people going, man, we're here, we're ready to go. And I really didn't know anybody, right? I was big in my own scene, but I wasn't big in that scene. And I remember finishing the close, I would have done an hour set, 5 to 6 a.m., club still packed. And
this is January the 1st, 2000, is that right?
So no, it would have been, so when's Mardi Gras? It's around Mardi.
Oh, sorry, Mardi Gras. I'm thinking, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with
around
Y2K. Sorry,
I still have a flyer.
So what year was this then?
2000.
Oh, 2000, right, okay, yeah.
In 2000. And it was just, that's what got me this hunger for wanting to play to the Frantic scene, because I'd always been buying, and because I was working at One Stop DJ at the time, I'd always just been collecting Nucleus records, hard house tunes, Vicious Circles, all of that. I just liked it, right? But that just accelerated in relation to my bigger passion to keep on wanting to play more and more of that style to that crowd that wanted to hear that. Because in my scene, that high energy scene, I was just playing that music and trying to educate people, because that's what I just enjoyed it, not because they really wanted to hear it, but I just go on this whole educational journey. But when you can just play to people that love that, and the newer, the harder, the faster, the crazier that it was, the more and more I wanted more and more of that. So I went on that journey of, and just last year, as you would know, playing 25 years of it. I think I only missed one or two, if that, like just falling in love with the brand and falling in love with the crowd, and it's I've had some of the most memorable nights playing that music, and making some of the best friendships from that. I mean,
it's incredible, like seeing all the flyers and the things popping up now, like with all the 25th, but like I did Insomniac's 25th birthday last year, but then I think it was High Octane in the UK was this weekend that's just gone. Every few weeks you see another 25th and you think, fuck, 25. It makes you realize how old you are.
Yeah. And that's what I get most of. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's what I sort of get brought back into. So like a lot of reunions, which is really lovely. And that's fine. But I'm also about, how can I play some new music, right? Hence the reason why the techno scene has been amazing. It's also really challenging because you're really putting yourself out there. Like, I'm stepping out of this comfort zone of things that I just know and play.
Yeah.
Having to research though constantly what's good in that scene, what people are liking, what's making them trigger. And so, I'm doing that watching YouTube or watching like a reel on Instagram. It's just bizarre, right? But that's how I feed my understandings and my research on what people are liking. And I'm really lucky. I've got a bunch of people that also love that scene, and they help me out. Oh, this is good, Mickey, you should consider this, or you're playing this, like, so that also helps me understand. And I still love researching music, right? To me it just gets a really good kick if I've heard something. Oh, what's Paul playing? And then doing that hunt. I still love the hunt, the chase. Is the best thing. Like, and then you get it and you're like, okay, well, what's the next thing I need to get?
Well, it's funny actually, I was in the gym earlier and I was talking to the young kid that works with us, Justin. So we train together, and I was trying to explain to him how I'd done a video about the Chocky remix of Incisions Beyond Motion. Now, the first time I heard that was on a Spencer Freeland tape that one of my friends had been to London and bought this tape from some shop and brought it back, and we were listening, and then that track was on, but we didn't know what it was called, who it was by. There was no internet, there was no Shazam, so you just had it on this tape as this amazing track with this, really distinctive scream on it, and that's all we knew, and then fast forward a few years, I end up licensing it for Vicious Circle, and me and Paul James did the remix, and we licensed the Chocky mix to go. It was a double pack, as I remember. I think Steve Thomas did a mix, and I can't remember. There was another one, I'm sure. But but yeah, back then, you like if you were on the hunt for, you'd go into a record store. If you worked in a record store, people would have done it to you all the time. Oh, it goes like this, and they'd hum it to you, or you'd have to hum it to the guy, and he's just looking at you. I ain't got a fucking clue. I don't know. Sometimes they go, "Oh yeah, this one," and you go, "Oh yeah," but like there was nothing to, unless you knew someone that had the tune and you could see the sleeve, and then if you just heard it on a tape, which is all you would do back then, that's all you had to go on. It was like much more. When you found the tune, it was like, you found the pot of gold. Whereas these days, you just Shazam it and then, oh yeah, it's such and such, and then you within 2 minutes you can download it. It's just completely different now, isn't it? Yeah. So so what's next for? Obviously, it feels like, because I listened to your podcast when you were on. Is that Neil? Is it the guy Neil Cummins?
Neil Cummins. Neil Cummins from Secrets of the Underworld. Yep.
So he must be a Scouser from Liverpool originally, yeah. But he lives in Australia.
If I said yes and I got that wrong, I would be fearing for my life.
I'm pretty sure it's safe to say he's from Liverpool. Just listen to him. He's definitely he will be. But pardon me. So
how's that big?
Yeah, listen. Yeah, it's giving me gas. You were saying, about sort of you're back into, you're sort of finding your feet again, and that's exactly how I feel. Like I've had this big break from doing anything, and I've done gigs, every now and again. I might do 1 or 2 a year. I think there was a couple of years through COVID where I didn't do anything, but then, through doing the podcast, it's really, I was in the studio last night. I did a virtual studio session with Paul Maddox and did the B side to I've done a remix of one of my most famous tracks that's going to come out at the end of the year. So we were doing the B side for that. But the only thing is, because a lot of the gigs we're doing now are these reunion gigs where they expect you to play the classics. So I can't play my new stuff. I've got a Vicious Circle 400s coming out in a few weeks. So I've got 2 tracks there, plus these other 2 that I've done, but I can't play them at these gigs that I've got coming up because they're expecting you to play stuff, older stuff. So but
first world problems. I need to get in the studio with you. You can write all the music, and I can take all the fame, and and play them.
Mate, I'm the same as you. I was listening when you said about you were never hands on in the studio. You kind of give them the idea. I've done over 100 tracks. I don't even know how to turn the computer on. I have picked up absolutely nothing in the studio. I'd literally sing what I want to Maddox, and he does it. I have this knack of explaining it in such a way that he's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I'll tell him these weird things, and he's like, yeah, I get that. And he does it. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then that's how we make the track. So I have the idea. I know I'll come up with the melodies and things like that.
Beautiful.
And I just sing it to him, which would be super embarrassing if anyone other than Maddox ever heard it. But that's how we do it. But I have no idea. I couldn't program a kick drum. I was never interested in that. I just sit there and tell them how I want it. And I've been in the studio with loads of different producers, and I like to think that, it's always got that Glazby sound, no matter who I've been in with. I don't want it to go and it just sound like their track.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no idea when it comes to the sort of technical side of it. So
yeah. Well, it's funny enough. I actually just I was having a conversation with a guy by the name of Dave Austin, and he's done a bunch of really cool sort of bouncy energy things, and I'm just about to do some projects with him as well, because to your exact point, right, there's a bit of an outlet that I just have and just want to share, and there's music that I love to play, and so it's about, okay, to your point, how do you infuse some of that knowledge and I think expertise and be able to try and produce that into some new projects, and because I think in some of the circles that I'm in, I'm listening to a bunch of different things that people aren't listening to. And sometimes I say, have you heard this before? And, what do you reckon of this sound? Could we incorporate that? And people are like, oh man, didn't know that. Yeah, let's work. Let's work towards how we can produce something that could sounds like us and still me, but taking some of that new sounds and infusing it into all of it. So I was actually I was chatting to John Langford the other day, and sort of giving him some thoughts around there that I'm just interested in, right? So and he's just like another one, right? Making a huge resurgence, with his updated K series and all the work that he's doing at the moment, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to get on to Steve Hill and get him to get us a gig together down in Sydney sometime soon. That sounds like a good idea to me.
I think it's a bloody great idea. Yeah. Do you have any plans of coming into Sydney anytime soon?
Nothing on the nothing on the agenda at the moment, but never say never.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm assuming something like that will hopefully, come around sooner rather than later. Do you ever come down here for other work, with the real estate stuff?
I came down actually for a real estate sort of convention thing a few years ago. I think that would have been back in probably before COVID, so it would have been 2019. There was like some seminar thing that I came down for that was like real estate related. But yeah, that's about it. But whenever I'm down, mate, I'll definitely look you up.
Yeah. And Steve, come on, man, let's do something. Steve, if you're listening to this, we're reaching out to you. We're ready. We need to do something.
Yeah. Well, Mickey, thanks for your time, mate. It's been great to get your sort of insights on things. And you've always been like an absolute pleasure to be around. And I'm sure anyone that's listening to this that's seen you play can definitely attest to that. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, mate, and we'll obviously keep in touch and compare notes when we get into his 50s, see how we're doing.
I might just not be able to hear you at that particular stage. If I get to 50, if I can keep my hearing and I can hear you, I think that would be amazing. Mate, Can I just say, this is just unreal. I cannot believe that you and I are doing this, after playing your records for so long, and obviously playing alongside you and watching you. I think it's just surreal to be doing this. So, mate, a massive thank you for having me. I genuinely,
mate, it's a pleasure.
It's been very cool. Very, 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 very cool. It's been very cool.
Awesome, mate. Well, you take care, and I will definitely see you in Sydney soon.
Please do. All right, brother.
Thanks, mate.
This is When I Grow Up with Paul Glazby.